The Ruy Lopez is one of black's worst nightmares. You see, when black responds with pawn to e5 in the king's pawn game, oftentimes they do not expect to see bishop b5 because a lot of people actually study the Italian game. Now, this bishop b5 move kinda throws a lot of average players out of theory. So what I want to do in today's video is to show you another chilled response that you can try against the Ruy Lopez. I should mention to say the main line here is to go pawn to s6, which is the Morphy defense, or straight away go knight f6, which is the Berlin defense, and all those moves are just fine. But you see, they say madness is doing the same things over and over while expecting different results. So if the Morphy defense or the Berlin defense is not for you, you better try something else. So stick around and wait for my recommendation. And just a friendly reminder, all of my courses are still on promotion. Yes, you still get 50% discount on all of them. That is, you will get a discount of 50% when you purchase any of my courses. Right, the Ruy Lopez begins as follows: e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, then bishop b5. It can also arise from the Nimzowitsch defense. I mean, for those who already purchased my Nimzowitsch defense course, you know what I mean. After e4, and say you begin with knight c6, the Nimzowitsch, my favorite response to e4. Instead of white playing pawn to d4, which we would love to see, they may also start with knight f3. And the moment we go pawn to e5, that's when they play bishop b5. Immediately you see this move. For now, I recommend going straight into the end game and finish the game quickly. You know, bowl white to death. With my strategy, your games will be finishing in less than 20 moves or in 15 moves, depending on your opponent's skill. Trust me. So simply start the game all over by undeveloping your knight. Maybe this was a mistake. In most cases, white is gonna take your pawn on e5. Trust me. I've tried this opening several times in over the board games. None of my opponents has ever taken on e5 because they know me for traps and gambits. So I'll show you how to continue if they don't take your pawn on e5. But let's just say knight takes. I want you to notice what is happening with the eval bar. Put this on Stockfish, the evaluation is 0.5, which is as good as saying nothing is wrong. The game is just starting. The move is queen g5. This attacks the knight and the bishop. Note that if white goes back, they lose their light squad bishop, so they can't do that unless they are, a complete beginner. Again, pawn to f4 is never a good idea. Due to queen takes f4, not even queen takes g2, nope. Queen takes f4, and look at the eval bar. We are back to equality, 0.1, threatening to capture the pawn on e4 and that. If knight f3 this time, we just go ahead and take, and we are just up a pawn for nothing, with a better pawn structure, by the way. So we've seen that both knight f3 and f4 are bad moves, which only leaves white with one correct move to play, d4. This is an attack on our queen, so you are forced to take on g2. Now see what I was talking about, you guys. I said most of your games will be ending in less than 20 moves, at least in most cases. It is true. If that doesn't work, just know on the next move you are going to enter a mini end game where you're supposed to start trading off pieces as quickly as you can, but the approach you take really matters. Follow my strategy. The only sensible move white can play here is queen f3. Anything else they do, they are going to lose. And the only move you can play from here is queen takes. Anything you do, you are going to lose. But wait a second, there's an intermediate move to speed up things. Instead of taking the queen immediately, I propose you get your dark squad bishop out of the pawn chain like this. If pawn to c3, which is the top played move, that's when you take on f3, you take white's queen. They are going to take back, and then you retreat your bishop back to e7. Very important move. So why did we start with bishop b4? In reality, we just wanted to eliminate the option for white to play knight c3, so they can no longer play knight c3. We just delayed their development. And yes, white has a massive center, but we are going to force them to extend these pawns because pawns don't go backwards. I don't know why, but in most cases, rook g1 is the top played move. They just want to take your g7 pawn. You have an option to go g6 or king f8, but my favorite is knight f6, attacking the pawn on e4. Again, you will see pawn to e5 being played. And it turns out the whole idea of playing knight f6 was to protect our g7 pawn like this, and there's nothing white can do to harass our knight on h5. They can't even take the pawn on g7. Now see how we made white to overextend their center pawns for nothing, like in the Alhide defense. We are going to get rid of these like this. This is only the 10th move of the game, and we are already in a mini endgame. Maybe white here would play something like bishop g5, I'm not really sure. But there's a trick in this position that can make you win a game in 14 moves. And it has happened to me before. In most instances, you don't want to be the first one to take your opponent's pieces. Like in this case, if you take the bishop on g5, you are going to allow white to activate their rook and attack your knight. So the best you can do is to ask white to take your queen's knight. Knight c6 also gets ready for knight takes e7 so that the knight can be placed on a better square. By the way, if bishop takes, you simply have pawn takes. This helps you to pave the way for your light squared bishop and stops pawn to d5. If you check the evil bar, or if you put this on stockfish, stockfish favors black. Never be afraid of bishop takes. You have king takes, they can't take your pawn. Even if they play something like rook g5, that'll be a sheer waste of time due to pawn to g6. Your knight on h5 is very safe. And now because of our c pawn, white cannot make progress. We are going to develop our light squared bishop normally, putting it where we want to put it, and most importantly, activate our rook. We are already in the endgame. This is what I'm talking about. But after playing knight c6, you won't see many people taking. They will play something like d5. This is only move 12. With d5, they think you are going to retreat your knight again. But here is where you shock your opponent right on move number 12 by sacrificing your knight on e5. So you see how this knight moved. Knight b8, knight c6, knight takes e5. Who does this? Only Casper's students. See, if you think white can play an intermediate move like bishop takes, that'll be a losing mistake due to knight takes f3 check. And that's just a free knight. If king e2, we have knight takes, that'll be check, and we'll are going to get the bishop. If something like king f1, we just get a free bishop. That's it. All of a sudden, see how we got rid of that huge center white had. So they are not going to continue playing accurate moves all the time. Again, after pawn to d5, just know you can take on e5. That's just a trick. This time, if white starts with knight takes e5, hold on, bishop takes g5 would be a blunder. The move you want to play is f6. That's an equalizing move. If the knight goes back to f3, now you take. If knight takes, you continue playing your chess. For example, here you can even cast a shot. Ask yourself, where is that huge center white had? I mean, you're already in the endgame. Again, you can play moves like s6 in this position. Even pawn to g6 works. Even knight f4. From here, play your endgame. So that's a line you can surprise your opponents with in the Ruy Lopez, and that is called the retreat variation. Of course, there are so many things white can do, but let your goal be to oversimplify the game and go straight into the end game, whatever white does. For example, after knight b8 and knight takes e5, just go queen g5 again. They'll be forced to play d4. I mean, all the moves from here are going to be forcing moves. And remember to play bishop b4. It just psychologically forces white to play c3 so that you take the queen and retreat that bishop back. If they don't play c3 for some reason, and let's say they play maybe bishop d2, you can just go for oversimplification like queen takes, knight takes, bishop takes, so you don't have a bad bishop anymore. Knight b takes d2, and then knight e7. Yes, again, you are in a mini endgame. You're going to castle like this. But here's my point. Given a chance, you want to put much of your energy or concentration on the center pawns. So let your next moves be c6 and d5. E.g., say white plays rook g1 in this position. Of course, there are so many things they can do. They don't even know how they can continue this. So castle short, castle long, these are logical moves. Then d5. I find this move to be more committal. d6 is also playable, by the way, even s6. But with d5, I'm just trying to open up the position and play my endgame very well. If pawn to e5, human move, or play something like s6, trying to build up from that side of the board. They play bishop d3 most of the times. And now, knight g6. I have a place where to put my knight. if things turn sour. Once again, look at the eval bar. Stockfish gives black a negative 0.4, still favoring black. So all in all, what I'm saying is, as dubious as this looks, nobody prepares for it. So they won't continue playing correct moves all the way. If I were you, my next strategic plan would be pawn to c5. Maybe beginning with knight d7 first, because I just want to open up that side of the board. Now, before I show you how my over the board games go, there is this other line that you can only try in bullet. I propose, after bishop b5, knight b8 and knight takes, instead of playing queen g5, you also have an option to go knight f6. So you're just attacking the pawn on e4. And the move you are waiting to see is pawn to d3. Once this happens, just know you are winning the game right on move 5 due to pawn to c6, kind of the Mortimer Gambit trap. And the idea is, after bishop a4, now you have queen a5 check and you're going to walk away with a free piece. Even if white plays something like bishop c4 in this position, you still have queen a5 check and you're going to walk away with a knight. But there's this line which you need to be very careful of. Knight takes f7. This can still be tricky. After king takes and bishop c4 check, you can simply go d5. People love keeping tension on the board, and now you have to stop pawn to e5 with knight bd7. That's it. If pawn to f4 for some reason, just wait for white to extend their e pawn so that there's no longer tension on d5. So you can play all sorts of other moves like pawn to f5 in this position, bishop e7 also works, but in my opinion, the best is to attack that active bishop. You want to get rid of it. If pawn to e5, you can just take knight takes b3, that attacks the rook, so they are going to take. And now, this is when you save your knight, maybe like this, knight g4 protected by your last squad bishop. If that, you know you have queen h4 check. By the way, you also had knight h6, if anything. So, knight f6 immediately is just a blitz line where you hope for white to play pawn to d3. If they don't do this, let's say they play any other moves like knight c3, you're going to find yourself in trouble, but not losing. You can continue with bishop b4, castle shot, and all those stuffs, but you're just down a pawn for nothing. Alright, now we deal with people who are risk averse. Here is what most of my opponents in over the board games do. After I retreat my knight back to b8, for some reason they don't take on e5, because this is just move 3 and they don't know what traps they are going to fall into. So they most of the times play castle shot. That's the second most played move. Whenever this happens, start imagining the rat defense or the Philidor. And here is how your plan will go. c6, d6, queen c7. If you have enough time, you can even develop the last squad bishop out of the pawn chain, but there is no need to. You can go knight bd7, kind of the rat defense. So what we do in the rat, knight f6, bishop e7, h6, castle shot, and the game is done. This will be your plan, whatever white is going to do. So you begin with c6. They mostly go back bishop c4, after which you go d6. We are back to the rat defense. There's nothing much they can do. They can't play knight g5 to attack the f7 pawn because that knight will be gone. So they first of all go pawn to d4, trying to create this. But this is when you can go knight d7, again the rat defense move. Or better, queen c7. I love queen c7. It indirectly protects the e5 pawn as well. If you are looking at the move knight g5, it doesn't work due to knight h6. Your pawn is well protected many times. Queen h5 will be a sheer waste of time due to pawn to g6 again, or e takes d4. That will just be a free pawn. I mean, everything is well protected. So going back, knight g5 won't be an option here. If d takes e5 happens, which is the top played move, you have pawn takes. See, your queen is still protecting that pawn on e5. So white usually continues with knight c3. See the advantage of playing c6. It kind of stops knight d5 or knight b5. So you just continue playing normally with moves like knight f6. I love starting with bishop e7. By the way, the Paris move just to stop knight g5 for good. But anyway, this and if that, we can even play bishop g4, attacking the queen. If pawn to f3, now we protect our f7 pawn like this. This is another way of protecting our f7 pawn. We can also start with bishop c5 check, and after king that, we go bishop h5, then bishop g6 and castle shot. In conclusion, just for my new viewers who don't know how the rat defense goes or what it is, let me show you briefly. After e4, e5, knight f3, and d6. Of course, white is going to play pawn to d4, which is the top played move, after which you can transpose the game back to the rat defense like this. Although this is called the Hanam variation, how does this resemble the rat? It's like white started with e4, then we played d6, and after d4, we played knight d7, which is called the rat defense. And it is here where white may play knight f3, the top played move, after which you can go pawn to e5, transposing back to the Filido defense Hanam variation. I love starting with e5 just to keep things simple. Now here's the thing, instead of taking back right away, white may play bishop c4, kind of the scotch if you think about it. The only move you want to remember in the rat defense, even when you run out of moves, is this one, pawn to c6. Just play this even if you don't know what you're doing. Chess will play itself. Just an example, if you carelessly play something like knight f6, which is already bad, white can simply take, and after you take back, they may hit you with knight g5 and there's no defense on f7. Of course, there was something you could do, maybe taking back with the knight, but that doesn't still count. For example, knight takes. Are you willing to lose your queen and a free pawn? That's the question. Another mistake would be a move like bishop e7, which may lead to this losing position where white plays queen d5, and look at this, you have no defense whatsoever. In fact, there's a game where Grandmaster Firouzja Alireza went on to defeat a chess master in less than 10 moves using this variation. So it is because of this queen d5 possibility why I'm emphasizing on playing pawn to c6 whenever you have a chance, as early as move 4 or move 5. So after setting up your Filido defense structure, and say white plays bishop c4 in this position, at best you want to take on d4, at worst you want to go c6, preventing queen d5 in advance. Now here's where the little trap may occur. White may take on e5, and after you take, they might try the following: bishop takes. I should mention this is bad for white only if you know exactly what to do. Point is, after you take the bishop, they then follow it up with knight takes e5, so that if you carelessly take back like this, they then grab your free queen. So this is one cheap trap you always want to avoid. Let me show you the remedy. If bishop takes happens in this exact position, just take back. And after knight takes e5, don't take back. Play king back to e8. That's it. You might say queen h5 check could be played. Well, just simply go pawn to g6. There's nothing much happening. And after knight takes, you simply go knight gf6. This is an attack on the queen. If white takes the rook, you take their queen. So they'll be forced to play something like queen h4, still preventing you from capturing their knight. But the main move is actually bishop b4. This is check. Point is, after c3, now that's when you attack that knight. If pawn takes, you take back on g6 with the rook. That's it. And if e5 is played, you still take the knight on g6. If ef, you just save your bishop. And if check, you just capture the pawn. You see, putting your bishop on a5 also defends the queen indirectly. So white is not gonna win that for free. If you don't like the idea of going bishop b4 check, you can still go rook g8. It's still a move, but be rest assured white is gonna save their knight like this. So only play bishop b4, then bishop a5 later if you want to keep your bishop pair. By the way, after knight takes, the best you can do is to take back with the other knight. Taking back with a rook will kind of bring back white into the game, although that's fine, but you just want to take back with your knight. Even if bishop g5 comes, at least you have queen a5 check, and that's going to hit the bishop, so bishop d2, then finally queen e5. You also have queen e7 and knight g6 or rook g4. So that's how you solve this cheap trap. Just take and bring back your king to e8. From there, don't be defensive. Apply offense is the best defense throughout the game. Lastly, after e4, e5, knight f3, d6, d4, and knight d7. If white takes immediately on e5, just capture. And after bishop c4, once again, you can just play pawn to c6 to prevent queen d5. Of course, the main line is to go bishop b4, provoking c3, then you go bishop d6. But you're not going to remember that, are you? So to keep things simple, just go pawn to c6. If bishop g5, you have queen c7, or you can even play bishop e7. That's it. Next, knight gf6, castle shot. If knight g5, double attacking the f7 pawn, you always have knight h6. What if they play queen h5? Safest is to play queen f6. Now check this out, you guys. If you want to learn more about these kinds of tricks or similar opening ideas like the ones I just shared, you can watch this video that has popped up on the top left. Another video that I highly recommend you check out to skyrocket your rating is this one that has popped up on the top right. But if you love Gambit videos, you can check out the video that has popped up on the bottom left. And if you are a lover of chess traps like myself, feel free to click on the video that has popped up on the bottom right.